Be abreast with now. Never miss a thing with Mdntv, the podcast. We love to keep you in the present with diverse goodies from secular and non-secular subjects of global interest. Join us. Grab more from these series. Listen to our podcasts. The undeniable choice.
It's sundown. The day has just begun. Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Yes. This is MDN Shows on Running with the Times, only on Mdntv, the podcast. And I am Major Daughter. Welcome, welcome, welcome to all our listeners and viewers around the world. Meet us in the comments. We are live there. Ask questions. Comment, share this program. Tell your friends to tell their friends. This is one show you don't want to miss. I want to find out, have you subscribed? If not, what are you waiting for? Because this is the hottest show on the planet and there's no other. And I tell you today, let me take a deep breath. Today, we are going to the other side. My guest says, the thing you are afraid to say is what your audience needs to hear. Do you have anything you're afraid to say? I can't think of any. Well, maybe I don't really know if there's any. But he says that's exactly what you need to be saying. How many of us have those fears? Have those things we are fearful and not comfortable to speak on or to talk about? My guest says, you see how many times I'm repeating this? My guest says that's exactly where your big break is. And we're talking about an actor, a performer for over 35 years. Not only that, he's a co-founder of Endless Stages Training Group. Think about it. Now, if he owns Endless Stages, he knows exactly what you need to say on the stage. Those of you with stage frights, those of you who are not sure, come on, jump in right after this.
Mdntv, the podcast. Be abreast with now. Never miss a thing with Mdntv, the podcast. We love to keep you in the present with diverse goodies from secular and non-secular subjects of global interest. Join us. Grab more from these series. Listen to our podcasts. The undeniable choice.
The undeniable choice for today is indeed Tyler Foley. Look, he is thriving despite a medical incident that paralyzed the left side of his body for over a year at the age of 17. He's doing brilliantly well. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you, Tyler, and say thanks a gazillion times for saying yes and for sharing yourself with the world. Now, here is this. You said that thing we are afraid to say is what our audience needs to hear. Really? I thought you are more interesting. I thought you are more interesting when you are obscured and, more secretive, Tyler, the mic swings to you.
Thank you for such an absolutely wonderful introduction, Major. I appreciate it. Your enthusiasm is infectious, and your audience loves you for it. But it's true. I agree with you. There is always a little bit of mystery and allure when you don't know something about somebody and you want to get to know something about somebody, and maybe holding back a little when you're dating or, in some form of social setting is fine. But when it comes to public speaking, when it comes to being engaging entertainer or informer on stage, we want to speak to and hear from the people who have the experience. We want to know what has gotten them from point A to point B. And when we gloss over the dirty details, or when we try to make ourselves more than what we are, or worse, when we try to make ourselves less than what we are because we're afraid to maybe stand up and stand into our power, stand into our light, it's usually because we're afraid to say a thing.
Hmm.
And I have found over 35 years of being on stage that when people find the strength, the conviction, and the bravery to say the thing that their heart is coveting, the thing that they're afraid to let out into the world, that is when they find their ideal audience. That is when they have the most impact. That's when they find the people who need to hear their wisdom. And it's
Hmm.
only those people who find the bravery to do that that have the real leadership.
Whew. But how does one really garner and gather this bravery to say those things, especially for one with many stories to tell that you are afraid to really tell? Tyler?
Well, and I'm glad that you bring it up. The story that you use to illustrate will be entirely dependent upon the situation. The details that you choose to uncover will be entirely up to you. And I would love to say that there's a magic wand or a secret sauce that gets people to find that bravery. The reality is there isn't. You need to have an inner conviction within yourself that what you're about to say is going to have impact. And the only thing that I can do, the best thing that I can do, is illustrate it with an example, with a story. Les Brown always says, "Never make a point without a story, and never tell a story without a point." So this is my story to illustrate to you exactly what I'm talking about. I had the privilege of speaking at a wonderful self-development conference back in about 2017, 2018 called Life by Design. And it's a 2.5 day seminar, multiple speakers coming, speaking on self-development and really guiding the audience. Wonderful, intimate little setting too. It's in the mountains in Canada, just in the BC interior on a beautiful lake. Usually about 80 people attend. And
Yes.
I was the second last speaker. And the keynote that evening was a gentleman by the name of Jared, and he delivered a talk called The 10-Minute Time Machine. Now, what you need to know about Jared is his current vocation and what he does for a living is sells life insurance. Prior to that, Jared had other jobs and had spent the majority of his adult life trying to find the correct combination of pills and alcohol that would allow him to end his life in a way accidental enough that his children would get a life insurance payout, because his wife and him, due to his mental health issues and his dependency on substance, had split up. She had sole custody of his children, and he felt incorrectly that his family and particularly his children would be better off if he was not there. So
Mm.
in the 10-minute time machine, Jared discusses the moment in time where he got the combination right. And the details that are important with this is there was a family event where he had feigned sobriety long enough that his ex-wife and her new partner had enough trust in him that for one night and one night only, because they just needed a break, he was able to take the children. The problem is he had developed a habit and ritual of doing this thing nightly where he was going to play with these pills and alcohol. So he gets the children,
Mm.
puts them to bed. He himself goes to bed and then wakes up as per usual, forgets that the kids are there, and begins his routine. And then kind of realizes that something might be a little bit off, and thinks maybe the kids are here, but maybe it's a hallucination and whatever. And he keeps consuming and consuming and consuming until it's very early in the morning at this point, probably 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. And he starts to feel different than any time that he's done this before. And he starts to feel things fading and coming black. And just as everything is about to go,
Mm.
the image of his son comes in and he says, "Daddy, are you okay?" Because he's gotten up wanting to have breakfast. And in that instant, everything became clear to him. And he goes, "I can't do this now. This can't be the time. This can't be it." And everything in his body is fighting, except for he's consumed enough of these
Yes.
chemicals that his body is saying, "Well, too late, pal. That's how it is." And the only thing he could do was say, help. And then he was out. And his son went and he phoned 911 and the ambulance came and they got him to the hospital and they pumped his stomach. Technically, he legally died. But that was the moment that he needed, because he'd gone to rehab before and he'd
Yes.
done the
Yes.
steps and it hadn't really done anything. So when he gave his talk, the 10-minute time machine, the whole point of it was if he could go back in time and change just the 10 minutes just then, would he? Because it was a dark moment for him, dark moment for his son. Definitely his actual rock bottom, despite what he thought was rock bottom previously. And he says, no, he wouldn't, because he needed that moment to realize, to change his mental process, to change his thought patterns, to really recrystallize what his actual priorities were. And then he dedicated himself to recovery and sobriety. And thankfully, he's been sober ever since. He has drastically changed his life around. He's wed a wonderful woman, a wonderful partner, and he has a beautiful relationship with his children now. And so all of these things wouldn't have been possible if it weren't for that one moment. But you got to remember, now he sells life insurance. Talking about trying to kill yourself when your job is life insurance is a very difficult thing to do. But he knew that it was important, right?
Yeah.
He knew that it was important for him to share this message. Now, here's the thing. That day, sitting in the audience was a woman who had been gifted a ticket by her friend. And out of politeness, she decided to attend, knowing full well that on the Monday morning, she had picked up a spot in the mountains overlooking this beautiful lake. She had polished and purchased a beautiful rifle, and she was going to go up to this lookout, her favorite place, and she was going to make that final decision herself. But then she heard Jared talk. And she realized that she didn't have all the information and she was working off of false assumptions. And maybe, just maybe, she needed help. So she reached out and asked for that help and got it. And luckily, that next year made all the difference in the world, because not only did she stay around for herself and her daughter, she met a wonderful man who was incredibly supportive of her, and they're together to this day. She, looked at her career and found something that she found joy and satisfaction in. She changed her life drastically because of what she had heard. She reached out to the promoter of the event, because it was an annual event, and said, listen, I had this profound experience. I'm not a public speaker. I've never done this before, but I know in my heart that I wouldn't be here if I hadn't heard this message, and I don't know who needs to hear this message, but I need to talk. Can you do that? And the promoter said, yes, and if you need help crafting your talk, I know this guy, Tyler, he can help you out. I can help you out. We'll get you there. And so that's what we did. We got her up on the stage, and she, in a very real and raw fashion, but very compelling, told the thing that she was afraid to say. I was going to be up there and I was going to kill myself. In the audience that day were 3 people who were in various stages of feeling the same way. And they came to her and said, listen, what you said had a profound impact on me. How do I get help? So one person finding the bravery one year to say the thing that was probably really hard to say, because again, I sell life insurance and I was trying to take my life, but hey, buy some life insurance. Changed one woman's trajectory. The woman then found the bravery to say, this was where I was at. This is how I felt. This is what I needed. She changed 3 people's trajectory. And I don't know where the ripple goes from there, because I haven't been involved in the event since then. But what I do know is that I've seen that time and time and time again. And if your audience just thinks back, what is the most impactful thing you've ever heard somebody say? It probably wasn't something you knew about them. It was probably insight to why they are where they are that was probably very difficult or painful for them to share, but they found the bravery to do it. And subsequently, you had a greater, deeper understanding of that individual and felt empathy and sympathy for them. And you really felt for them and felt that connection with them. So when you want to connect with your audience, if you want to find that, if you want to be a leader amongst the people that you're speaking to, I promise you, saying the thing that you're afraid to say, giving the details that you are maybe trying to sweep under the carpet, hoping that nobody knows, is probably the thing that your ideal audience, who really needs to hear the message that this is where I was at and this is how you overcome it. Those are the people who need to hear it. That's how you find your ideal audience. Reach deep in yourself, find the courage for the purpose of helping someone else, and you'll have a profound impact.
You are speaking, but not just English. You are hitting it on the nail. You are hitting it on the nail, and I'll tell you why. Because, sometimes people need pressure. Sometimes we need the pressure. Sometimes when I'm sitting as a listener in any event, I love meetings. I believe in meetings. I attend meetings. But I want to hear people that I can connect with. I want to hear from someone that I can relate with. And when someone is speaking, I'm looking for that one thing that I can say, yeah. This I know. Then I now look forward to how they resolved it or how they responded and dealt with whatever it is that they were dealing with. So I should believe that this is how one discovers their audience. Okay?
Yes, and again, it's that revealing. And the thing is the more specific you are, the more universal your message speaks. And it's amazing how those details really matter. Because here's the thing, you got to remember when the example that I gave, a room full of 80 people and 1 to 3 people really needed to hear that message. The other 75 plus still had a profound impact.
Yes.
From hearing that message, because it was very detailed and very specific. And the beautiful thing about the way that Jared delivered his, it's a heavy subject, but he found the light and the humor in it. He found the message and the meaning behind it. He really tied it together. He's an incredible storyteller. He published, his book is a phenomenal read. And when it came to the delivery, he was able to make you laugh. He was able to make you cry, but he walked you on the journey because it was his story to tell, because nobody knows it better than him. And that's another reason why I think it's really important to say those things that you're afraid to say, because it is your story and nobody knows those details better than you. So nobody can challenge you on them. That it is your experience, and you are taking somebody on a journey. The real key to finding that is finding those details that will make it universal, so that people understand, so that you and I sitting in the audience, you and me, we're sitting together and I'm like, Major, this is right. You're going, Tyler, this is, and I'm going, I know.
Yes.
Because those details speak to you. You and I lead drastically different lives, but that story can impact us in a similar fashion, because it becomes more than an individual. It becomes about the greater whole.
And I'm thinking, whether bad or ugly doesn't matter. What matters is those people that needs to hear that story at that time. And these stories become like labels that we now wear with pride. As time goes on, we gather bravery and boldness to now be able to relate them boldly, taking ownership of what is transpired. Now, how does one, yes, I think you want to say something?
No, by all means. How does one, I want to know the question, because
How does
I was probably
one
going to answer
now
it.
Yes. How does one now get over stage fright? The stage fright, the fear that will grip you at that very moment. You find you're looking for English words, you can't find them again because now, and where does it even come from? Because maybe if we know where the stage fright comes from, we'll be able to address it. Tyler?
Eh, Absolutely. So, two things to clarify. One, stage fright is real. Fear of public speaking, for the most part, for most people, is not. This notion that we're afraid to speak in public is typically just a story that we're telling ourselves. Stage fright is real. That's a real autonomic response to flight or flight stimulus and perceived threat. And that's where the problem is we're perceiving our audience as a threat. They are bad. And the funny thing is your audience is a treasure. And so it becomes a matter of mindset. So this notion that we're of being afraid of public speaking, we need to tackle that first, because that's usually the start of the response of why I perceive this audience as a threat. So if you are of the 75% of people surveyed who feel that you're afraid of public speaking, I would like you to just quickly think about the last time you were in a restaurant and ordered food, whenever it was. And did you or did you not know your wait staff? Because if you've ever ordered food in a restaurant where you didn't know your waiter or waitress and you asked for the food that you wanted and it got delivered to your table, you've done a couple of things. You've spoken in public because there were other people in the restaurant. You spoke to a complete stranger because you didn't know your wait staff. You asked for what you wanted and you received it. So if you've ever ordered food in a restaurant, you were able to speak in public, you were able to speak to a stranger, you were able to ask for what you want and receive it, which completely and totally nullifies this notion that we're afraid to speak in public, we're afraid to speak to strangers, we're afraid to ask for what we want, because all of those things are proven false if you've ever been in a restaurant, ordered food, and gotten it. And this is what I want people to remember. You're not actually afraid of public speaking. The reason you can order food in a restaurant and not worry about it is because the people in the restaurant, a public place where you are speaking, ergo speaking in public, are not looking directly at you. They are minding their business, eating their food. You are minding your business, eating your food. And the wait staff is going to take your order, go off and forget you within a half an hour, unless you didn't leave them a tip, and then it's going to burn in their mind about 24.
Yes.
So you need to remember that the reason you perceive this fear, this stage fright, is because when the eyes are on you, what you are actually afraid of and what causes stage fright for the most part is this fear of public judgment. You're afraid that what you are going to say is going to be perceived negatively or somehow misconstrued, or that it becomes the what if scenarios, the stories that we're telling ourselves in our head. And we need to remember that they are stories, right? So somebody else knows more about this than me, and somebody else does this bigger, better, faster, stronger than me, or who am I to talk about this, or I don't want to talk about this, or I'm afraid to speak in public. All of these are stories that we're telling ourselves. And so the first thing to do is recognize that your audience is not a threat. Your audience is on your side. The audience wants you to succeed.
Yes.
And I can prove this right now, because you and I are having this conversation, Major, and you've got a beautiful platform here. Beautiful platform, right? There are people out there watching us. So hi to all the people. Let's just, hi, people.
Hi, people.
I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you.
Yes.
And when you, the viewer, the listener, the audience, came and tuned in to listen to me and Major speak today, I want you to quit watching this right now if this was your thought when you tuned in. I hope Major is awful today, and I hope her guest sucks. I hope he has absolutely nothing to say, and I really hope he forgets everything he's going to talk about. I hope there's absolutely no value in anything that this gentleman has to say, and frankly, I don't even know why I tune in to, running with the times each day. I don't know why. If that was genuine your thought, please, please, please turn us off right now.
Yes.
But if it wasn't, I want you to recognize you came here ready to engage, ready to be entertained or informed. You wanted me to succeed, because if I don't succeed, this has been a waste of your time. And we as human beings are inherently very selfish. And we want, our time to be of value. We are important. I am important. My time is of importance. So if you have people who have actively chosen to sit in front of you to hear you speak, they want you to succeed. They are not a threat. They are an ally. They are your greatest treasure. They are your greatest resource. And if you can start to view them that way, that takes away this fear of this perceived threat. They're not against you. They are with you. They are for you. And if you can start to view your audience as a sacred treasure and start to focus on them and ask yourself one question: how do I leave these people better than where I found them? Suddenly, it becomes not about you, it becomes about them. And it makes it so much easier to overcome that fear, because the fear is actually coming from a perceived threat. And if your audience isn't a threat, there's no reason to fear them. Therefore, there's no need for stage fright. And the best way to do that is to view them as the sacred gift that they are. And understand that even if you're leading a conversation in a boardroom and the people who are there have been voluntold that they need to be there because this is a mandatory company meeting, you must attend.
Yes.
At worst, they're passively indifferent to your message. They still want you to succeed because they're sitting there in the chair going, man, I hope this isn't a waste of time. I hope we get something out of this, because otherwise I could have been at Johnny's game. You know what I mean? Like they want you to succeed. The audience is on your side.
Wow. 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 The audience is on your side. Something that one should never forget. Tell us about the power of story. What is the power of story? And how does one
Well,
go about telling, yeah, I want to add this one on that? And how does one go about telling a compelling story when they feel like their life is not exciting? Is there
yes. Well,
such a thing
first of
even?
all,
I mean, some
yeah,
people will tell you
exactly.
there's nothing to say yet or to tell. No story to tell.
Yeah. Oh, so let's unpack a few of those questions. First of all, what is the power of story? The story is how we have, as a race of human beings, been communicating with each other for millennia.
Yes.
Millennia. Long before there was a written history, there was an oral history. And the written history poorly documents our oral history. Because as we both know, I could just, you and I could communicate through email, and we would lose probably 60%, if not more, of the actual underlying communication, just because we don't have the connection, we don't have the body movement, we don't have the inflection of voice, and even down to language and word choice. In an email, it's hard to see why we've chosen something, but live and interaction, we can. So we have been communicating through stories for eons.
Mm.
And it's through story that we understand somebody else's viewpoint, right? They say never judge a person until you've walked a mile in their shoes. But I can't come and walk in your shoes, Major. I mean, I've got tiny feet, but I don't walk well in stilettos. I know, I've tried.
Yes.
And, you know, and so I can't actually physically do that. I could try, but it would
Yes.
be poor and it really wouldn't be educational. But metaphorically, you tell me your story. You give me the details as only you know. because you are the authority of your life, because you are the only one who's lived it 100%. Other people may have experienced parts of your life with you, but you are the only one who knows your full story, start to finish, without exception. So you are the authority of your story when you tell your story. And it's through your story that I can learn what's important to you, what your values are, what your priorities are, what you focused on, how you overcame the things, what were the challenges, what weren't the challenges, what came easy to you, who
Mm.
were you, who have you become. All of these things are informed by your story, and you can tell me, and now I can understand you. And it's through the power of story that we gain empathy, that we gain sympathy, that we gain understanding through empathy and sympathy, that I can start to understand your world. I don't even have to agree with your viewpoint, but if you tell the story compelling enough, I can at least understand it. And that was one of the great things about Jared's story. He didn't need, I didn't need to agree with him. I didn't need to agree with his thought process. In fact, I could be horrified at times of the choices, but at least I could understand them. I could see his mindset, where he was at, why he was doing those things. And so although I may not have agreed with everything, I at least understand, and I can come to a connection with a person. And that goes for anybody's story. So to tell a compelling story, and where most people get storytelling wrong,
Mm.
if anybody is familiar with Joseph Campbell's hero's journey model, if you are, great. If you're not, very briefly, I will cover it for you right now. Joseph Campbell studied all the great literary works, all the old Greek texts, and up to, at his point, modern times, and looked at what the best-selling, the most compelling, the top-rated and ranked stories were. And he found a common theme, that all of the stories shared the same structure. You had a
Mm.
hero who was in a state of unaware. They didn't know uh, where they were at. They were blissfully ignorant until there was a triggering event that set them into a state of chaos, at which point they had to cross the threshold and find a sage or mentor who would then guide them along a series of trials and tribulations, so that they could learn and master the skills that they needed to eventually circle back and defeat their nemesis before they took their journey home. Where most people get storytelling wrong when they're trying to talk to an audience, particularly in a large seminar type event, or if I'm trying to do some kind of keynote presentation, is that they try to make themselves the hero in the story.
Mm.
And the reality is, when you are telling a story, if you want to affect an audience, you want to uh, have impact and change and help an audience come to an understanding, you are not the hero. The audience is the hero. And you are meeting them either at the point of unaware or at the point of crisis. And you are the sage or mentor who are going to guide them as they cross the threshold on their trials and tribulations. You, being the sage and mentor, having done it already, are going to show them how they too can come and overcome and conquer their nemesis out of the wisdom that you have gained doing it yourself. And that's why I say the thing you're afraid to say is what your audience needs to hear, because your audience will know if you're holding out, because they're experiencing the thing. They're in the state of chaos right now. They know what the triggering events are.
Mm.
And if you leave those details out, they're going to be like, no, this person doesn't understand me. They don't know what I'm talking about. But you start to give some of those details that maybe you're afraid to say. All of a sudden you have people going, yes, that's me. No, oh my goodness, I can't believe they said that. I wouldn't have the bravery to say that. Of course they're the sage and mentor, because they do have the bravery. They were brave enough to say it here. Obviously they knew what they were talking about to be able to conquer the demon. I have that demon. I need to conquer that. And if you frame yourself as the sage and mentor and you say, I have been here and I want to bring you here, follow me on this journey, That's how you tell a compelling story. That's how you get your audience invested in your message. That's how you can really impact change and leave your audience, which is your golden gift, better than when you found them.
Hmm. I want you to go back a little bit, and because this is the primary thing. You say many people make a mistake of putting themselves up there as the hero, whereas the audience is the hero, not the storyteller. How does one really balance this one and really get it right? I'll tell you why I'm saying that. The other day, my boyfriend of many years, who is my husband, said, "Oh, I'm enough with all these stories of people who say I started this way, I struggled, then I got it right." He said it's also possible for someone to not struggle and just still get it right. Do you see what I mean? So, how do you really
Oh yeah.
balance that? If most of your stories are stories of bravery, of heroism, and I mean, you are this victor, Tyler, if I can even. I'm just thinking
Well,
about him right now. Yes.
and no, and he has an excellent point. So, first of all, kudos to your husband for both being incredibly intelligent and having a wonderful point, and having such incredible taste as to recognize the gem that was in you and lock that stuff down. So,
Ooh, thank you,
kudos to
thank
your
you,
husband.
thank
Let's all give him
you.
a round of applause right now.
Yes, we
Um,
received that.
Yes. So, to his point, your story and your life doesn't need to be a Michael Bay blockbuster movie with explosions, and you don't have to have you don't necessarily have to have conquered these things. You may have just mastered these things,
Yes.
right? Like for me, I didn't have to conquer the fear of public speaking because I was put on stage at an age young enough that I hadn't yet learned that you were supposed to fear an audience. So my first experience being on stage was a joyful one of exhilaration, of empowerment, where the first time I was on stage, I got to hear laughter. I got to receive a standing ovation and applause, which is
Mm.
one of the most energetic and fulfilling things that any human being, you being an award-winning public speaker, know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes, yes.
When you feel audience rise and you've connected with them, and they're giving you the only thing they have, and that is their voice and their energy, because that's all they can give back to you, because that's what you've given them. And it's amazing, right? Like it's this huge amplifier, because I am one person and I give out to 1,000, but then 1,000 give back to me. Oh, the power of that, it's intoxicating. And so when I
Mm.
talk about overcoming, the fear of public speaking, I'm doing it from a recognition that that fear is a fallacy, that you're not afraid of public speaking. And I know that to be
Yes.
true because I know it's a learned behavior. So I didn't have to overcome that demon. I have experienced stage fright, and I can think of the 3 distinct times in my life when I've had it. But I can speak from an understanding and an empathy and a sympathy. I can tell you exactly where I was the first time at 14 that I actually experienced stage fright. But I also know what the reality is. So I didn't have to overcome a demon, but I did master a skill. So I'm
Mm.
still the sage and mentor. And if I have a skill set, right? Like I would love to have sat down with John Bonham or Neil Peart or Dave Grohl, even, and to learn the drums, because I'm a drummer. They
Mm.
didn't have to overcome something. They just have been doing it for so long that they are the masters. They're the people that everybody in the world go, who's the best drummer in the world? Well, it's probably one of these 3. Right. And unfortunately, 2 of the 3 are no longer with us, so I can't ask them. So, Dave Grohl, if you're listening to this and you want to give a private drum lesson to a guy who's a really poor percussionist, hi, my name is Tyler Foley, and my contact information is below. So, we don't need to have overcome these demons to have mastered a skill set, but you still need to have the credibility of why you're the master. You still need to say, this is the time that I put in. This is the energy. This is where I began.
Yes.
I can say that I am an expert in public speaking because I've been doing it for almost 4 decades. And then on top of it, I have, the credibility of the stages and the platforms that I've been on, the testimonials of the clients that I've worked for, the testimonials of the uh, coordinators and event promoters that have hired me. So I have a pedigree, but I still need to come not as the hero of my story. I'm not the hero of my story. I'm the sage and mentor of your story so that you can be the hero of your story.
Whew. What are some of the mistakes, maybe the biggest mistakes that storytellers are making out there?
Well, the first one is not telling their story. Like, that's the biggest mistake. The second one is telling it like they're the hero. And the third one is lying to themselves that they don't have a story. And
Mm.
you'd asked about it earlier, and I told you I'd get back around to it. So this is me getting
Yes.
back around to it. Everybody has a story. Everybody has a story to tell. And it pains me when I have my clients tell me, oh, well, I'd love to, but I don't have a story. I'm like, of course you have a story. Are you breathing right now? That means you're living. And if you've lived, you have a story. Like, even if it's, I ate Wheaties for breakfast, that's still a story. May not be a very compelling one, may not be a very interesting one, still a story.
Yes.
And and any story can be interesting and compelling
Yes.
if you give the details, right? And I can make having Wheaties for breakfast interesting. Ready? Watch. It was early morning, and I felt a pain inside of me, a pain and a void and an emptiness that I knew could only be filled by one thing, and that was my favorite breakfast cereal. And so I went to the cupboard and I scanned and I looked at the various options above me. High fructose sugar screamed its brightly colored rays at me, saying, eat me, eat me. And all I could think of was, no, I
Mm.
deserve something better. I deserve Wheaties.
Woo. Woo. Yes. Yeah. That is it.
Right? I just ate breakfast. That was it. I just ate breakfast. But you can make anything a compelling story. So when he tells me that they don't have a story, let's do a quick little exercise. You and me, because I know our time is short. And so I want to take 2 minutes and just have people do a quick exercise to find their stories. I want them to take their age, however old they are right now, and round your age, however old you are right now, to the nearest 5. So for me, 43, if I round to the nearest 5, it's 45. Now take whatever number you came up with and divide that number by 5. And what you will get is 5 even time periods of your life. For me, if I do this, again, I round to 45, divide by 5, I get 5 even time periods of 9. Now, what I want you to do, no more than 20 seconds per time period. I want you to look at each one of those time periods and think to yourself, what is my most significant memory from that time period? It doesn't have to be the brightest, the most vivid, but just if I think back to me, if you, Major, think back to you in your first time period, what is the first memory that comes to mind? Can't think too fast on it. It's the first one that springs to your mind. And then you do that for the next time period, the next time period, the next time period, and the last time period. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What is the first memory that springs to my mind when I think of myself in those time periods?
Mm.
Those are your stories. Those are your foundational stories, because those are the first things that come to your mind. Those are the guideposts. Those are the things that you keep coming back to, that you still remember to this day. And they don't have to be these vivid, moving pictures. They could be hazy remembrances. They could just be as simple as a color or a smell or a sound. For me, my first memories are triggered by sound. They're auditory. The sound of applause and then the feeling of energy that came with a standing ovation is one of my first memories at 6 years old. The sound my mom made when a police officer and my family physician came to our back door and told her that my father was never coming home. That's a sound I never want to hear again, that I again experienced at 6 years old. So 2 of my most profound memories, a sound that I will chase my entire life wanting to hear, And then 2 months later, a sound that I will spend the rest of my life trying to avoid, have profoundly influenced who I am and what I do to this day. And those are, those are my memories from that time period. And all you do is you get your time periods, you get your significant memories, and then the real work happens, the work that you and I can't do in the time that you and I still have together. Your audience now needs to explore why. Why is that memory so important to you? Why is it the one that sticks in your mind? And when you think back to you at that time period, that's the first thing that you go to. And it's that exploration of why that will inform your story, and delve into the details, because the details will give you the lessons that you needed to learn, that you did learn, that it will inform who you were prior and who you were after. That's what your ideal audience needs to hear. So the exploration of the why and then the lessons from that why can be ongoing. I'm still exploring my story to this day, because as I live and grow, my life changes and evolves, and the lessons that I'm learning change. And the last thing I would advise your audience, the other mistake, because you did ask what the mistakes are, the biggest mistake that I see people make when they're trying to tell their stories is that they forget that they should only speak from scars and not wounds. The wounds are still open. You haven't learned from those yet. You are still learning. So you can't be the sage and mentor from something that is still healing, but you can be a sage and mentor from the scars. The scars are your lessons learned. You can say, this is how I got this. This is how I healed from this. See my scar and be proud of them and own them. And that is how you will be a compelling, more effective presenter, speaker, and just general conversationalist. You don't need to use this to speak to a crowd of 10,000 people. This could be at your next house party and dinner. You have 3 or 4 friends over. Tell a better, more compelling story that way.
Phew, time flies, really. Let me tell you, this is a deal breaker. This one right here, the 5 times period. Look, so many things came to me, and it's unbelievable how fast they come to your mind, and you know that this is what you need to be telling. And then you find the why, then the lessons, then get the details together. And then you say, which is very, very important, don't speak from the wounds, speak from the scars, because the wounds are still open. Whew! It has changed my life. Few minutes that change your life forever. We have come to the tail end. The show comes to an end, but this conversation, this one right here, doesn't have to, especially with the bolts that you have been tilting since from the beginning. And I mean, what you have just said right now is something else. How can our listeners and viewers get to find out more about you and what you do? How do they connect? Where do we go from here? This cannot end here, because you also say there are unlimited stages available to speak on.
Yes. Well, and the best way for people to connect with me is to start with how they've found me, and that is through your show. So right now, if they were to hit pause, they'd probably be able to go down into the show notes and find my website, which is endlessstages.com, and you've got it posted up on the screen. But before they go to my platform, they're already on yours. So to you, the audience now who's listening and watching this, if you're coming back and you're really enjoying what Major Daughter is presenting, and if this is a show that is having an impact on you, that you are enjoying the content, before you go to my website, I would ask, because you're already on this one, so while you're on this platform, hit pause, give Major a 5-star review. And be specific. Give a detailed one. Don't just click the stars and walk away. There's a little comment box at the bottom of that. Tell her what one of your favorite episodes was. What was one of your biggest takeaways? What was one of your takeaways from this episode? Did I say something that had an impact or an effect on you? Let her know. if you can do that, then she can find more people who can bring similar content or help expand upon that. Maybe bring me back to talk about all of the opportunities that you can have as a speaker and where the endless stages are. So if you're enjoying this content, before going over to mine, please take a moment to give her a 5-star review, like, subscribe, make sure that you're sharing this with your friends, tell them about what is being done on this platform, because I'm lucky to have had the opportunity to be on this stage, and I would only have this opportunity because you are regularly listening. So I would ask that you, as a favor to me, leave Major a 5-star review. And if you're willing to do that, if you come over to endlessstages.com and you sign up on our mailing list, I will do a couple things for you. I'll give you a free PDF download of my book, The Power to Speak Naked. So regularly $17.95, but for you, you get the PDF for free. I'll also give you access to my Drop the Mic speaker series, which is 35 minutes of training videos. There's 7 videos in all, 5 minutes each. Very easy to digest. It's a thing that you can, if you took 5 minutes a day for a week, you'd have the training. And it's your introductory to what I'm like to work with. It will help you be an effective presenter, help you get over the stage fright, help you to find your stories. So we've made it so that it's very actionable and very easy and quick to work into your daily routine. So that's free to you. And as part of it, you can join our Endless Stages private Facebook group, where I go live every Tuesday at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern time, and give a live training to whoever happens to show up that day on whatever topic they want to talk about. So there's no preset agenda. It's not a sales pitchy thing. I just want to make sure that people are getting the information that they need so that they can find the stages to share their stories to have impact. So if you come to endlessstages.com, all of that is yours, but only if you give Major a 5-star review. No 5-star review, no book for you.
Yes. The Power to Speak Naked, that's the book. Very, very interesting. Sure. Thank you so much. Thanks a gazillion times once again for your time, for this masterclass. I mean, for changing lives. You've impacted lives today, including mine. What are your parting shots, Tyler?
Just remember that you do have a story to tell, and you have no idea the impact that you could have until you tell it. And the most selfish thing you could do is to keep your story to you. Let it out into the world, have greater impact, change somebody else's life for the better, and it will change yours as well.
Yes, that is it. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, men and women, Tyler Foley. Come on, go check him out. Tyler, thanks a gazillion times once again. It's a wrap from us to you. Well done.
MDN Talk Radio. The mic swings to you at